Close your eyes and imagine you're a sailor in 1716. The sky above Boston Harbor is black as ink.
Clouds swallow the moon, waves slam against your ship, and jagged rocks wait like teeth just beneath the surface.
You hear the groans of timbers, the panic of men, and you know one wrong move could shatter your vessel and your life.
For years, this was the terrifying reality for ships sailing into colonial America.
Each voyage was a gamble between fortune and disaster.
But then, on a September night in 1716, a strange glowing beacon pierced the darkness.
The first lighthouse in America had come alive, and with it, a new promise. Safety, commerce, and a future built on light.
But this wasn't just the story of a building. It was a battle of survival, ambition, and tragedy. The year is 1716. Boston is a bustling colonial port, but its harbor is as deadly as it is prosperous.
Merchants and fishermen depend on these waters, yet countless lives and fortunes vanish with a single storm.
To sail here was to gamble with death.
Colonial leaders knew if trade was to survive, something had to change.
They turned to an ancient idea, one born on the rocky coasts of Europe, the lighthouse.
And so, construction began on a tower that would stand as a guardian of the sea.
The tower rose on Little Brewster Island, solid stone, crowned with a lantern.
It would become the very first lighthouse in America.
But to the sailors who saw its light, it was nothing short of salvation. At last, a guide through the black waters, a promise of safety after centuries of fear. But lighthouses are not only built of stone, they are built of sacrifice. The keepers who lived here faced storms that could crush the tower itself.
They fought fire, isolation, and even enemy attacks. For this beacon stood at the crossroads of commerce and of war. And its light would soon become a symbol of survival.
To understand why this lighthouse mattered, we need to step into Boston in the early 1700s.
The idea of a lighthouse wasn't new.
Europe had them. The famous Eddystone Light off England's coast, had already guided countless ships. But for the American colonies, it was revolutionary. In 1715, Boston officials passed what was called the Lighthouse Act. It declared that a beacon must be built on Little Brewster Island, a rocky outcrop at the harbor's entrance.
But there was a problem back there. Who would pay for it?
Colonial America wasn't rich, and every new project sparked debate.
Some merchants argued it was essential. Others complained about the cost.
In the end, the colony came up with a bold plan. Every ship entering or leaving the harbor would pay a tax. That money would fund both construction and maintenance of the lighthouse. Imagine the scene. Workers hauling stone across the water, waves slapping against overloaded barges. On Little Brewster Island, masons laid the foundation of what would become a 60-foot tower,
built from sturdy rubble stone, topped with iron and glass. They worked through biting winds, cutting their hands on sharp granite, knowing one misstep could send them plunging into the sea.
But beyond the stones and mortar were the human stakes.
For ship captains, this wasn't just a building, it was survival.
For merchants, it was profit.
And for the colony, it was prestige. Prove that even far from Europe, they could build something that stood against nature's fury.
And yet, not everyone supported it.
I won't bring him.
Some rival ports feared Boston's lighthouse would give the city an even greater advantage in trade.
There were whispers of jealousy, of sabotage.
But nothing could stop the project now.
The beacon was coming. On September 14, 1716, the light was finally lit.
For the first time in American history, darkness gave way to a man-made beacon at sea. Picture it. Sailors straining their eyes as a faint glow appeared on the horizon. At first, it looked like a star, but it held steady, brighter than any flame they had ever seen from shore.
The Boston Light had come alive.
Ships began to arrive more safely.
The harbor, once dreaded, became one of the most reliable on the continent.
Boston's merchants rejoiced.
The city's future seemed secure.
But fate had a cruel twist.
The first keeper of the lighthouse was a man named George Worthylake.
He moved to Little Brewster Island with his wife and daughters, living in isolation, tending the flame each night.
Refueling lamps, trimming wicks, making sure the light never died.
Then, just weeks after the beacon was lit, disaster struck.
On November 3, 1718, Worthylake, his wife, their 2 daughters, and 2 servants were lost at sea while returning to the island by boat.
The irony was bitter. The very man entrusted to protect sailors from the sea had been taken by it himself.
Joe's back.
The tragedy shocked Boston.
Even a young Benjamin Franklin, then just 12 years old, wrote a ballad about the drowning and sold it on the streets.
The lighthouse, meant to symbolize safety, had already claimed lives. The Boston Light became the model for others.
Soon, more lighthouses rose along the coast, Gist, in Rhode Island, in New York, and beyond.
They transformed trade, giving merchants confidence to risk bigger ships and longer journeys.
Boston itself grew wealthier, its harbor bustling with activity.
Some historians argue that without the lighthouse, Boston might never have become powerful enough to lead the American Revolution just decades later.
A single flame had fueled an empire of trade, and with it, a hunger for independence.
The lighthouse also became a symbol. To sailors, it was hope. To merchants, prosperity. To ordinary people, it was proof that humanity could fight back against the merciless sea. Today, more than 300 years later, the Boston Light still stands on Little Brewster Island.
It remains the oldest continually staffed lighthouse in the United States.
But here's the haunting question. What if it had never been built? It has been rebuilt, attacked during wars, automated with modern technology, and yet, the flame. And without Boston's booming harbor, would the city ever have become the cradle of revolution?
History often turns on moments that seem small. A single light in the darkness, a single flame on a stormy night.
And this was just the beginning.
But sometimes, that's all it takes to change the destiny of a nation.
The Boston Light was the first, but far from the last.
Within decades, a hidden network of beacons would stretch across the American coast, guiding not just ships, but the rise of a new world.